In 22 countries, not just your passport but your citizenship can expire. Live abroad long enough and the nationality you were born with, or the one you paid for, simply ends. 9 of those countries cancel it automatically without so much as a letter, and most people find out when they're refused passport renewal. We'll get to those 9 and to $8 million passport that disappears along with the investment behind it. How you lose a citizenship depends on which of 3 legal designs your country uses. 1. The gentlest version requires a minister to sign a revocation order after years of absence, which at least means written notice and a chance to object. 2. A second design strips nationality for absence alone once a residence condition goes unmet. 3. The third design is the one on the thumbnail. Auto expiration, where the law itself sets a date and the citizenship lapses the moment that date passes. Members of our private community, IMI sovereigns, track obligations like these across every passport in their portfolio, with the Citizenship Catalogue mapping routes and conditions across 195 countries, plus an active chat where members discuss their own strategies. Link and a discount are in the description. Now, countries employing revocation are where we start. 8 of them inherited the same clause from a single British law written a century ago. Great Britain wrote the original rule into a 1948 nationality statute, then abolished it at home. Yet 8 countries inherited the clause and never repealed it: Ireland, Cyprus, Malta, India, Malaysia, Singapore, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. The mechanics are consistent across the group. Spend a long unbroken period abroad, usually 7 years, and the government gains the power to revoke your citizenship unless you file a notice at a consulate every year confirming you intend to retain it. Working for the state or an international body also exempts you. Malaysia and Singapore have the most strict policies at just 5 years. In Ireland, Cyprus, Malta, India, Malaysia, and Singapore, only citizens by naturalization or registration are exposed. Pakistan and Bangladesh drafted their versions to reach any citizen at all, including citizens by birth, which makes those 2 the broadest in the group. Ireland enforces the most active version, and it went dormant for 4 years when the Irish Supreme Court struck down the old revocation procedure in February 2021 for lacking safeguards. The power was unenforceable until a commencement order restored it, with effect from April 2025. Under the replacement procedure, an independent committee of inquiry can affirm or reject the minister's decision. Cyprus applies the 7-year test to naturalised citizens and gives objections to an independent committee. In May 2026, Cypriot lawyers reported that the civil registry had begun writing to naturalised Cypriots living permanently abroad to remind them of the rule. File that detail away, because the same provision comes back later in this video in a way that should concern anyone who bought citizenship in the Mediterranean. Malta defanged its clause in 2020. Absence alone no longer suffices there. The government must also show that the person's conduct during those years harmed Malta's vital interests. He or she has become a threat to public security. India adds a carve-out the others lack. Years spent abroad as a student do not count toward the 7. IMI Pro Varun Singh, Managing Director of CFIUS Immigration, says the provision has had very limited public visibility, and he has never seen it enforced systematically. He warns against reading too much into it because the legal framework exists even where enforcement has been infrequent. And anyone who has missed years of filings should ask the nearest Indian mission or a lawyer before assuming their status is intact. Malaysia requires a federal government order, written notice of the grounds, and an offer to refer the case to an inquiry committee before anyone loses anything. Singapore publishes guidance that goes beyond its constitutional clause, warning that any citizen away for 10 continuous years or more without a valid Singapore passport risks revocation. Pakistan and Bangladesh are the ones to watch if you were born a citizen. 7 continuous years abroad without the annual notice puts any Pakistani citizen in scope. The government can act on its own motion or on another person's application, and referring the case to an inquiry committee is optional. Bangladesh adopted the same 1951 statute after independence, wording intact, so its version reaches citizens by birth as well. So the annual filing at least gives you a lever to pull. 4 countries offer no such lever because absence itself is enough for citizenship revocation. Indonesia cuts off citizens who live abroad for 5 straight years without telling an Indonesian mission they want to continue as Indonesians, a declaration that must be repeated every 5 years after that. But 2 safeguards soften the rule. The mission must have written to the person first, and nobody can be left stateless. A rewrite is under discussion since the government proposed a limited form of dual citizenship in July 2026 and sent the draft to the President ahead of parliamentary debate, though the 2006 rule applies unless that bill passes. Egypt targets the first 5 years after naturalization. Anyone who obtained Egyptian nationality by naturalization or marriage can lose it in that window by failing to reside in Egypt for 2 consecutive years, unless the Interior Minister approves a reason for the absence. Oman rewrote its nationality law in 2025 and issued the operating rules this year. Anyone granted Omani nationality must not live outside Oman for more than 24 consecutive months, and permission to exceed that has to be requested 3 months before the deadline. Silence from the ministry counts as refusal, and Omani courts have no jurisdiction over nationality disputes. Believe it or not, this counts as a loosening since the previous law permitted only 6 consecutive months of absence within a 10-year period. El Salvador codified its version in March 2026. A naturalized Salvadoran forfeits nationality by living more than 2 consecutive years in his country of origin or by being absent from El Salvador for more than 5 consecutive years, unless he obtains a permit. 3 of these 4 rules were written or rewritten within the past 18 months, and more changes are moving through legislatures right now. Now, Egypt and El Salvador share something beyond a residence clause. Both sell citizenship to investors, and that combination is where this topic starts costing people millions. 5 countries on this list sell citizenship or sold it in the recent past, and their absence rules apply to investor citizens the same way they apply to everyone else. Egypt's citizenship by investment route grants nationality through naturalization, which places every Egyptian investor citizen inside that 2-year residence window for his first 5 years. El Salvador's Freedom Passport costs $1 million, or the equivalent in USDC or Bitcoin, and comes with the 5-year absence clause we just covered, a detail very few buyers of a $1 million passport have planned around. Cyprus produced a large cohort of naturalized citizens under its former investor program, and every one of them is exposed to the 7-year rule the civil registry has begun writing letters about. Malta's investor citizens fall under the tougher post-2020 clause, which need more than absence to be enforceable. Antigua and Barbuda goes further by attaching the condition to the program itself. Its citizenship by investment unit states plainly that citizenship revocation may follow where a new citizen spends fewer than 5 days in the country during his or her first 5 calendar years, and that anyone deprived on that basis recovers none of their money, so the investment or donation disappears along with the passport. And that threshold is climbing. The Prime Minister tabled a bill in July 2026 raising the requirement from 5 days to 30, cumulative across the 5 years and extending to dependents. He told Parliament the 30-day rule had already been applied administratively, so applicants should treat 30 days as the working requirement while the legislation catches up. Regional harmonization is driving the change since Antigua and Barbuda is aligning with the Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority. The shared regulator, agreed by the 5 Eastern Caribbean countries with CBI programs, Expected to begin work in September 2026, St Kitts and Nevis approaches presence from the other end. Its 2026 reform requires physical presence to acquire citizenship in the first place, and the July 31st, 2027 biometric enrollment deadline for existing investor citizens affects passports' usability, leaving the citizenship itself untouched. Every rule so far involves a government taking some visible step before you lose anything. The last 9 countries skip all of that. And they are the reason the thumbnail says auto expiration. 9 countries end citizenship automatically. The loss surfaces years later, usually at a renewal centre. 5 of them share a single Nordic rule. A citizen of Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, or Iceland who was born abroad and has never lived in the country loses citizenship on his 22nd birthday, unless he applies to preserve it. Time spent in any Nordic country counts toward an exemption in all 5, and none of them applies the rule where it would leave a person stateless. What separates the 5 is the filing window and how much warning anyone gets. Denmark accepts retention applications from age 20 and 3 consecutive months of registered residence in Denmark, or a year there in aggregate. Preserves citizenship with no application needed. Sweden takes applications from 18 and changed course this year. Rules in force from June 2026 preserve the age 22 cutoff, while letting anyone who already lost citizenship this way apply to recover it. Where the migration agency finds the loss had disproportionate consequences for the applicant or family in Sweden or the EU, Norway wants 2 years of residence in Norway itself, or 7 across the Nordic region, before the 22nd birthday. Iceland leaves the call with its Directorate of Immigration, which subjectively weighs whether the person has engaged with the country enough to justify the passport. Finland is the only country on this entire list that warns people in advance, writing to citizens who turn 18 after fewer than 7 years of registered residence in Finland. Applying for a Finnish passport or identity card between 18 and 21 preserves citizenship on its own. A warning letter only works if it arrives, though. IMI Pro Marco Peck of Peck and Nansimbem Global, who examines descent chains professionally, has seen clients with a Finnish parent lose citizenship without realizing it, because the address on file in the population registry was out of date. The notice went out to an old address, and the loss surfaced only years later. He calls the results devastating. The Netherlands is the outlier on scope. A Dutch national with a second nationality loses Dutch citizenship after 13 consecutive years living outside the kingdom and the European Union. And this can bite at any point in adult life. Renewing a Dutch passport or identity card resets the clock, and so does spending a year back inside the kingdom or the EU. The period was 10 years before an extension in April 2022. Belgium set its deadline at 28. A Belgian born abroad after her 1967 who also has another nationality and who never lived in Belgium between 18 and 28 loses citizenship on his 28th birthday. Since 2018, obtaining a Belgian passport or identity card inside that window counts as a declaration to preserve it. Switzerland's deadline is at 25. A child born abroad to a Swiss parent with a second nationality forfeits Swiss citizenship at 25 unless the birth was registered with a Swiss authority or he declared in writing that he wants it. Reinstatement is available for 10 years without moving to Switzerland, and after that the price is 3 years of Swiss residence. Peck's advice for families in this position is to act at birth. Register children at the missions of every country of citizenship as soon as possible, then apply for passports from each, since a passport is the most durable proof of citizenship there is. Spain gives 3 years. Someone born abroad to a Spanish parent who was also born abroad must declare between 18 and 21 that he intends to continue as a Spaniard. Spain's Supreme Court has ruled that renewing a passport at a consulate inside that window counts as the Declaration, which has rescued plenty of people who never knew the rule existed. France barely belongs on the list, since a French court can declare nationality lost only where a family has lived abroad for 50 years without ever using it, a provision aimed at dormant ancestral claims. So, if you have citizenship in any of the countries mentioned in this video, establish first whether your nationality came by birth or by naturalization. Citizens by birth are outside the annual notice powers in Ireland, Cyprus, Malta, India, Malaysia and Singapore, and outside the Egyptian, Omani and Salvadoran rules too, with Pakistan and Bangladesh as the exceptions. Then find your reset mechanism. Since Belgium, Finland, Spain and the Netherlands all treat passport or identity document application as proof of your intent to retain the citizenship, put every deadline in a calendar. 22 across the Nordic countries, 25 in Switzerland, 28 in Belgium, 21 in Spain, 13 years for the Dutch, and rolling 5-year windows in Indonesia. Investor citizens should also read the program conditions themselves, because Antigua and Barbuda's 30 days, El Salvador's 5-year clause, and Egypt's 2-year window are program-facing obligations an agent may never have raised with you. Now, these automatic rules hit people who were born into a citizenship abroad and never knew a clock was ticking. If you have children born outside your country of citizenship, their deadlines are already set. Watch the video on your screen next. 4 deadlines that decide if your kids keep their passports, where we go through every age restriction on citizenship by birth and by descent. And subscribe so you get more videos like this delivered to you in your notifications.